Did I ever tell you what my Letterman's jacket is in? Typing. Once I found out that you could do that, I thought it was hilarious.
Is that why your hair was like that? Because you got so many swirlies? Because they said, come here, typing nerd.
This episode of The Modern Rogue brought to you by NordVPN. Head on over to nordvpn.com/rogue. Spell it right, R-O-G-U-E. Get a huge discount on 2 years and 4 months free for you. Sorry, I didn't.
You got it.
4 months free.
Ryan, do you know how many times I've been accused of black magic?
I mean, I don't know how many they've been ironic or serious, but I know it's a lot.
Oh, ironic, like a lot.
Yeah, no, by me all the time.
Serious, like 3.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, by adults, by thinking, functioning adults.
Unpack this for me. Like in what situations were the first 3?
I've actually kind of lost count. A lot of it is because, I have, I don't know, esoteric interests.
Yeah, no, okay, and it should be disclosed that you have what I believe to be the longest running D&D campaign I've ever experienced.
Oh, it's true, yeah.
There's an existing campaign that you've done for what, 30 years now?
Almost 40.
Wow.
Yeah,
So your job is constantly to be creating this world and unpacking it, and I've been privileged to sit in on a couple of sessions. It's clear that your mind is constantly saying, okay, what other weird stuff can I find?
Yes. And so I have actually, through my interest in D&D and horror, read a lot of stuff on folklore and the occult, and I have a pretty tremendous library.
A lot of incognito tabs open.
A lot of, yes. Yes. Are you familiar with in high school UIL, like debate competitions? Also as a part of that, there would be short prose competitions, poetry competitions, where your school throughout the season, once a month, twice a month, would go to another school, and all the other schools would get together there, and you would compete in various categories. And this one was usually debate, prose interpretation, where you read a short story, and that was the one I was competing in. So you pick a short story, it was usually like 6 minutes long, and then you read it, and then they judge you. You have a panel of people, they write down, oh, your delivery was this, but your shirt was untucked, and your hair was in your eyes, or whatever.
Structurally speaking, and I hope this isn't an overreach, essentially we are describing the format of a rap battle.
Yes!
Only it was in an academic context.
Yeah, can we change it? Can we just say, I was in a rap battle?
Yeah.
And then suddenly there's like, no, you weren't. And so I was doing prose interpretation. I had a short story, and you read it in the first round, and then you go on to the second round, and the semifinals, and then finals.
So prose interpretation is a good performance of a story, and
yes.
But the interpretation part, I guess the performance of the story is your interpretation. This would be like when I did theater arts and we would do competitions. Like I read The Telltale Heart, and here a very wispy prepubescent Brian Brushwood would talk about the maddening of the Telltale Heart.
That must have been adorable.
I'm so glad cameras weren't around.
I did The Telltale Heart as well in junior high.
I mean, there's a reason we ended up together. Yes.
Usually in high school, everyone starts to get lofty and they think, I'm going to read Dickens. I'm going to read all of these weighty, lofty things. And I said, I'm going to read the scene in Salem's Lot where the vampire turns the priest into a vampire, because that scene is awesome.
I mean, number 1, yes. Number 2, yes. That is, and I'm assuming everybody else is playing a game where the judges might possibly, and I think this is actually wonderful advice, if you find yourself playing the game that people expect you to play, consider playing a totally different game and changing the rules. And that's what you did.
Exactly. I said, I'm going to read from my favorite novel, and I'm going to read one of the scariest scenes from my favorite novel, because I'm just going to make it really scary.
Yes.
Nobody ever really tried to make it really scary. They would have intensity or tears or thoughtfulness or, this is like I read a motivational poster at my dentist's office.
Right.
So I get up there, and I was very well practiced. I did the voices of Count Barlow, and the kid, and Father Callahan.
I was about to say, is Father Callahan there?
Yeah. I'm a priest. Come, shaman.
A little bit of role play.
Okay.
You're how old at this time?
17.
Oh, yeah. I'm a father of 7 kids who doesn't really want to be here at this high school thing. Next up, we've got Jason Murphy. He's gonna read a book I ain't never heard of. Well, I'm sure it'll be adorable. Here we go.
Yeah, I've got my suit, clip-on tie, ponytail.
It only gets better. It only gets better.
Yeah. I did show up so I can set the stage. I showed up into the room wearing a floor-length black trench coat. Yeah, it was bad.
There's nothing I'm not loving about any of this.
But in the scene, the priest is meeting with the family, and the kid is like, listen, there's a vampire in Salem's Lot. And the family's like, no, there's not. And the priest is like, oh, maybe there is. And then Count Barlow flies into the house. I don't know how he got in. I still don't remember.
He's a vampire.
He's a vampire. Yeah, he is the big vampire. He comes in and he kills the parents, and he's got the kid. And he tells the priest, all right, you want to face off against me? I'll let the kid go. But will you face me, priest? Faith against faith. My faith against yours. Toss away your crucifix, shaman. I will face you with my faith. I'm paraphrasing, right?
Keep going, because right now I'm ceasing to think about my family and my other obligations, and now I'm just writing notes.
Come, shaman. Come, priest. Your faith against mine. That's what I was doing. I was a theater kid. I was a huge nerd. Don't be a theater kid. Don't be a theater kid.
Actually, go ahead. Be a theater kid.
Be whatever you want.
Just understand.
Be whatever you want.
Don't let them tell you about Hollywood structure. That's all a lie. But yes, be a theater kid.
And so I'm there in the finals. And this is in like Monahans, Texas, or Andrews, Texas, a small town, middle of nowhere, Friday Night Lights.
West Texas.
The
Deserts.
godforsaken.
Deserts all around.
Blasted cultural wasteland. It's a void. So I'm there, and I read Salem's Lot. Nail it.
You have to read the same story every time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I get up there, I read it, finals. Everyone is, okay, well, next, nervous laughter. Ooh, I'm like, yeah, that's all right. I was one of the first ones, and I'm feeling good. I do the whole thing, feeling good, and, giving the whole stare into the camera, with the evil eyes and everything. And it's over. Okay, got it. 17 years old, chewing up the scenery. I go and I sit down. They're like, okay, wow, next person. The next person comes up, and I knew this kid. I went to school with him. We're gonna call him Chad. He is not a Chad. Maybe we shouldn't call him Chad. Maybe it should be Donald.
Okay.
It should be Donald. Let's call him Donald.
He's a real Donald.
He's more of a Donald.
I would imagine Donald is a little bit more buttoned up, somebody who is pleasant.
Donald, very pleasant, very quiet. I considered Donald a friend. I was nice to him.
Past tense on the use of considered.
Well, yes, and we'll get to that. Donald had an untraditional religious upbringing. Donald was the kid who in August would wear a coat, walking around town by himself, talking to himself. Donald's robot may have been a little broken.
Well, and keep in mind that there are precedents for strange things that happen when we get caught in loops. You could think of stage hypnosis, where somebody's brought up on stage because they want to be the star of the show, and a series of requests are made, and they get nudged into deeper and deeper, so that at the 45-minute mark, they're told, you are Britney Spears, and it's more pleasant to just keep being Britney Spears. There's something called flow state that, as I understand it, is this wonderful bliss where you totally lose yourself in a project. And even as we are doing this, there's a good chance that I will remember none of what we're saying 1 week from now.
That often happens.
Exactly.
To us.
Yes. There's kind of an amnesiac aspect to it or whatever, but there are also religious institutions that begin slow and build up to an ecstatic space where strange things come out of them, and then they forget them. And it truly does subjectively feel magical. The best explanation I've heard, and I'm gonna massacre this, but in his book, The Righteous Mind, Jonathan Haidt describes humans as 90% chimpanzee and 10% bees. Like when you go to a college football game, you find yourself in kind of a hive mind thing. You're all chanting the same thing. It's the same reason that a platoon spends the first 6 weeks of their basic training marching in unison and singing the same songs. So you kind of tickle that 10% bee flow state in there. So whatever comes next, I would not be surprised if if you induced it out of your friend Donald.
Well, what you're talking about is also related to collective effervescence. Like when you're at a show and the music swells and everyone feels it, it is a kind of hypnosis.
Yeah.
And I think that's also kind of related to the specious diagnosis of Stendhal syndrome, which is not in the DSM.
What is that?
Stendhal syndrome is something that has been coined. They don't know if it's real, it seems psychosomatic, but many people, when they go to Jerusalem or Florence, Italy, and they are there in front of a magnificent work of art, they become overwhelmed.
Yeah.
If they get caught up in it, and they might faint, they might dissociate, much like when you're going to see Elvis or the Beatles,
Yeah.
people freaking out and fainting.
Before we get back to you being a terrible person,
Yeah.
the way I think of it is there's a wonderful Radiolab episode titled Loops, and strange things happen when you get caught in a loop, when you keep on thinking the same things, and I would imagine that would, in the build-up to a religious experience, happen, or be terribly abused in a situation like this.
So Donald,
Yes.
is his name. Donald gets up there, and he was actually very good. This was the finals. I had competed against Donald before.
What was he supposed to read?
Great Expectations.
Okay.
And before you read, you give an introduction. And that introduction is written by you, not the author of the piece, where you kind of contextualize why you've chosen this piece. He gets up there, and he's talking about Pip in Great Expectations, and you know that's what kids do. And he starts speaking in tongues, and his head rolls back, and he's making these noises, and he's just looking up at the ceiling. And this goes on for a solid minute, and I'm thinking, oh, Donald's going next level for this one. And I'm thinking, man, what is that, French? What? And I'm like, that's not French. Oh God. And I realized it clicked, and because I'd never seen it before, and I'm like, this is glossolalia. He's speaking in tongues. And everyone's and his coach gets up and says, okay, Donald, let's kind of gently leads him out the door. The rest of the class is silent. And then finally another judge says, okay, who's next?
So that's a case where at the time, all the young people who haven't read the 70 books that we've read about all this stuff might just think, what a weird kid. But it's like, I understand it now. It's like if he came in preconditioned with certain thoughts and you wove an excellent story that drew him all the way in, because also, like, even now I saw your rhythmic delivery begin to pull me into the story, and the fact that you didn't stutter or stammer, the fact that you were fully present and the world became more and more real, it would not surprise me one bit if he was just fully distracted by your story and was trying to break out of it and caught himself in a loop and ended up having that experience.
Yeah, and there were some religious trappings there because I was doing an evil story about evil defeating a Christian faith, and he was very Christian and kind of lost his potatoes. My piece was very rehearsed, and it was meant to have an effect. It was meant to scare people.
Right.
I was always honing it and sharpening it and trying to be the most effectively scary short piece that had ever been read.
Right.
In UIL. So we continue. The rest of the contestants come up, they read their pieces, we're done. Once it's over, one of the judges comes up to me and says, did you cast a spell on that young man?
I to be honest, from the way you described it, that's what I would ask.
And I said, what? He goes, we need to know. We were talking about it. Did you cast a spell on that young man? I said, no, because magic's not real?
Okay.
I was like, what? This was an adult asking me this, and I was kind of scared. Like, oh, the adults in the room are crazy. That's what I suddenly felt like.
Well, and I understand that would be your response at the time. However, let me make a counter argument. I was thinking about, why do young people learn magic? And I had the thought, it sounds like a ridiculous thesis, but I believe that learning magic tricks is an actual magic spell. It is a series of incantations in the form of a pre-written script that you perform for someone else that involves reagents. You have to have the right props to do the right thing. And if you pull it off, you legitimately, for the remainder of the evening, get a +1 to charisma. I don't think any of that is metaphor. I think that is factually what happens. And I think likewise, I think that you cast a spell in a similar vein. You hypnotized that audience. You know what? I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna call it. Jason Murphy, I think you should be a writer.
Oh, thanks, man. Do you want to hear the rest?
Yes.
It gets crazy.
Wait, I'm sorry. We haven't heard the crazy part yet?
No.
Okay.
Multiple adults, 2 different adults came up to me asking me if I had cast a spell on them. One of them seemed much more serious than the other. Other fellow youths had come up and said, "What did you do to him? How did you do that?" And I was like, "It's just a story. Talk to Stephen King. I just read it. That's it." Donald was taken to another classroom by his coach and one of my other friends that I grew up with, who I still play Dungeons and Dragons with. He is now a minister and a doctor of theology, but he was sitting there because he's a very kind person, and he was like, "Let's make sure Donald is okay." Donald was catatonic for an hour in this classroom, just sitting there staring straight ahead, and all of a sudden, he's back.
Yeah.
He's, "Oh, what happened?" He didn't remember what happened. "Donald, what's going on?" Sorry, I don't really remember. I just remember Murphy scared me. I got last in the finals.
To be honest, justice was served.
I got last, and I got my critique sheets, my feedback, too scary. And I was just like, and all I could think about, even at 17, I wasn't sad. I was like, "You demon-haunted people, I won." And 15 years later. Yeah.
So this is like in our timeline now.
Yes, 15 years later, something like that. Victor contacts me.
We're gonna call him Victor.
Yes, not his real name. Victor says, "Hey, remember when you scared Donald and made him speak in tongues?" How could I forget? My life has been downhill since. That was my crowning achievement. And he said, "Well, he hasn't forgotten." It's like, what? What do you mean? Donald is a self-published author. Victor found him on Facebook. He had this book, and it was about a high school student who was bullied by Satanists.
Oh.
Donald is the high school student.
Oh.
It is like semi-autobiographical. And if you look at the cover, which he drew, it's my high school. And then I thought, okay, well oh man, I'm sorry, it looks like he had a bad time in high school. Victor is laughing. He's like, "Oh, you're not getting off the hook. Hang on." And he said, "Look at the back cover." And he sends me a picture of the back cover. It has the satanic bullies. One of them has a long ponytail and a black trench coat. I was one of the only people nice to Donald. I make him speak in tongues once and suddenly I'm the bad guy?
Let's just say, hoo boy, the power of excellent storytelling. Am I right?
Yeah. I got one, I'm looking over my shoulder every now and then, making sure I don't get a stake through the heart or something.
If anybody has a similar story, hit us up in the comments. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like we learned some science, but
I'm a warlock.
we literally, yep.
The nuclear warlock strikes again.
Bryce, no, I have an idea, and I think it's good. I feel like I gotta clear the air, though.
Clear it.
NordVPN, they do the thing where they hide everything, right?
Yes, they protect your traffic.
Yes, specifically, like they keep it a secret even from your ISP where you're going. They keep it a secret from everywhere. Now, that doesn't mean you're doing a bad thing. It just means you're locking the door while you poop, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
What else do they do? They military-grade encryption. They're based out of Panama, no extradition treaties.
Sure.
In case you're that worried about what your poop is.
Just in case.
Okay, but I had an idea for a promo thing. What's the gimmick? What are we promoting right now?
Get a big discount on 2 years and 4 months free.
Right, if you go to nordvpn.com/road,
That's right. That's right.
Okay, all right. Now, this is the part I want to test. You're my test market.
Got it. I'm locked in.
You just let me know if I'm Warmer or colder?
Okay.
Nord. This is the part where you go doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And I go Nord. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Their protection was fast as lightning.
We need to encrypt this ad.
The protection was really exciting. In fact, it was a little bit frightening.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I was searching for some tickets for an anniversary. I didn't want targeted ads. Hooray for Nord! I've got to work it out.
Yeah. We can't do any of that.
What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm just citing the 1970s classic Kung Fu fighting while talking about our friends at NordVPN who keep everything private for you. They make it totally encrypted end to end. No.
See, that part works.
No. Yeah, no, I think we have to. I know you're uncomfortable with it, but it's like, you know, I'm speaking truth to power, let's face it.
What truth? There's not a truth here.
The truth is that you can pause it whenever you need to. Mm-hmm. The truth is they have unmatched encryption. The truth is it keeps it even from your ISP where you're going when. And to be honest, ain't nobody needs to know what you're up to. You know what? You're welcome. NordVPN.com/rogue. Nord.
I appreciate the commitment to the bit.
Well, I'm just saying.
What?
In fact, keep all this in too. My favorite part is how uncomfortable Bryce is with all of this. Oh my God. That was the best ad I've ever done.
Modern Rogue is supported in part by viewers like you at patreon.com/modernrogue. In the description, you can find all of our credits and additional ways to support the show.
So I can set the stage. I showed up into the room wearing a floor-length black trench coat.
Yes.
This is pre-Columbine, so nobody was scared or anything.
There was no baggage.
Yeah, you could wear a black trench coat, and everyone just thought, look at the nerd in the trench coat and the tennis shoes. He's the Highlander?
What are you out there, solving crimes?
I know, yeah.